Welcome to the 6th video. So since we last met, I brought the painting up to this level, so it's getting onto the home straight now. So in this video I'm going to show you how I did the quilt, how I did some of the faces, and I used this model, so I'll show you making the model. Also, since last seeing you, it's been Christmas, New Year, and I've had a hip replacement. So I'm feeling very, very different and a load better. So you'll see through the video, my walking gets better and better. Right, it's Boxing Day and I'm going to go all Blue Peter. So I'm trying to make a model of the raft to get the light right because my figures on my raft, the ones at the back are the rugby players and they're in the distance. So the light will cast differently. So I've practically got double-sided sticky tape and washing up liquid bottle. But yeah, so a knitting needle and some clay and a semi-stiff fabric for the sail. Okay, wish me luck. Right, here we are. So this is just a piece of cardboard, the back of a cereal packet, literally. That's the quilt pattern. So I'm starting with the base, obviously. I've put some folds in where I want the quilt to be folded in the picture. And now what I'm really doing is trying to understand the quilt pattern because quilt patterns are often based on a normal grid, but because of the sort of triangles that are made into each piece, they give the impression of being diagonal. And in order to sort of lay that pattern onto the painting, I really need to understand it as you would if you were making the quilt. It's part of their charm, how, you know, the pieces themselves form little individual icons, and then once tessellated, they get this lovely overall sense. So here's my, the green sail is a bit of my old painting trousers and nice sort of sailcloth level of stiffness, and so I can shape it a bit. And the what looks like string that I'm using is actually a sort of gritty coated wire, which was a gardening wire, or it might be floristry, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's really good for sticking together the bits of kindling and skewers that I'm using. So together with this clay. So you'll see that the figure I'm making now is Anna Davy Mitchell, who is sitting in the position of Rodin's thinker with a humanoid robot on her lap. There it is going on. So my objective isn't obviously to be realistic. It's just so that I can locate the shadows once I put the light in. So once this is done, you'll see me positioning the light to work out where the shadows fall. Then I'm just adding in more and more of the figures, and there's my pot of kitchen clips, the coloured clips, which was really useful for some of the bodies and as a prop to make things stand up. Okay, so before I go to the next level of detail, which is hopefully the final pass, I've made this model and I'm just going to check the lighting. So I've got my streaming light here, and I'm going to try and adjust it with reference to Jericho, because what I want to do is have my painting be realistic light for my figures where they are. So for example, the rugby players on my painting are much further back in space than the figures which are sort of here on the Jericho raft. So my footprint front to back is much deeper. So the light will be different, and I've decided I'm happy with that after wondering for a while. So I have to really think now quite carefully about the angle that I light it from, and just looking at whether I go, if I go close, then the shadows splay. If I go further away, I get more diffuse light. I can actually adjust this light temperature and brightness. And so I'm just going to have a play with that and then come up with a reference that I can show you. Okay, so here's the model in front of the canvas, and this is the photo that I took as my reference. So I was really careful lining up the light so it hit the sail as per the Jericho and the bit of cloth that is actually the back of Paula Rago's skirt. And I've got it catching the top of Anna's head and it's just catching Timoclea's head, but not the figures in the middle. Right, so here's a bit of just gratuitous paint mixing. So I'm trying to sort out the sky, and I'll show you in a second how it's going on. But basically I just need a really nice dark mixture. Mostly this is there's a little bit of King's Blue Light, which is really just, I think, French ultramarine and titanium white and burnt umber, and they're my main colours, and I'm just controlling the darkness and temperature. But also there's a little bit of, I think that's quinacridone red going in. So I'm just trying to make up a decent enough patch for the main body of the cloud. Okay, so I've got a lump here of the darker, and I think I just need a tiny bit of a puddle of a slightly light, just for variety, if nothing else, slightly lighter, slightly pinker, just so I've got a better choice there. Okay, so I'm going to start with this darker colour. Whoops. Right, so I'm going to try and lose this purple and basically cool down this darkest dark, and to get a bit of variety of marks. Palette knife would be just. So in the Jericho, he's used that as I think it's the background sky, but what I'm going to do is treat that as positive cloud, just to help give the sense of morning. So these are dark clouds, and they'll be backlit. Right, in the cold light of day, I've come down to have a look after a night's painting and discovered it's a right fuck up. So I had a lovely long chat with the oracle of light, particularly sunrise and morning light, Julie Dunster, and Julie was wonderful and so helpful on helping me analyse the problems with the sky. So I want it to be a morning light, which is what I think is in the raft. And I'm happy with this. The colour on here I'm really happy with. So this is cooler than the colours on the raft. I'm not looking to create an effect of a storm, but I do want to have enough wind to blow the skirt and the sail. So the plan is, I understand that morning light tends to be cooler pastel tones because there's less humidity and particulate in the air to scatter the longer length light rays. So it's going to be cooler. I'm still going to have this gradation, but this sort of colour is going to be right up here. Two things that I've noticed studying this and trying to think through wind and weather conditions. Number one, you can see these figures are backlit. So it looks like Jericho's implied that the sun is either behind there or maybe over here in relation to like the light on the sail and backlighting these figures. But then look at these figures here in the Jericho have all got quite a lot of light on them. So it's almost like he's got two light sources, and it might have been the moon, because I know the moon is very strong when you're at sea particularly, but I think it's just artistic license. But here's an even bigger bit of an artistic license, corker, which has made me think it really doesn't matter what you do as long as it looks okay. So you can see here that the wind is travelling this way because it's moving the cloth, her skirt in my case, and it's filling the sail. But this bit here in Jericho's painting is a wave, and the wave is coming towards you. But if the wind is going that way, the wave wouldn't be coming towards you. So that was another really comforting lesson as a result of just studying the painting and thinking about it. So I'm going to sort out the background colour first and then lay the clouds on top. And then I can get on with the figures knowing that I've set the lighting. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to key the particular areas, so that, like I did in the Amit video, I think I can put a link up here, when I was doing the background. So I'm going to set my colours, just a few markers. So most of this will be cloud, because I do want to create a credible environment for wind. But you know, kind of like there, I'm going to go for a slightly more greeny hue as we get up here, and then warmer underneath. And I can basically just spread those then with the brush. I'm running quite low on white. And you might notice I've been kind of painting over bits of the raft and bits of the people, but that's fine because I can bring them out afterwards. I just need to get the sky right first. And I want to have this line, I think it's too steep here, so I want to kind of keep this almost horizontal line, which means this light here, go more like that, I think. That looks a lot more morning-y to me. Maybe a little bit warmer down here too. Although, as the sun's over this side, I think it'll be cooler over here on reflection. So, I think that's right, get on with it. Having lifted the colour of the background, I'm now putting the clouds back in and really trying to add some under lighting, some bounced light from underneath. And then I brought in Man of Dreams to help with this. Right, so I've reached the stage now where I think I need to work on all the faces. I don't want to go too detailed, so this is my new setup. I find it much easier to abstract the shapes and get a likeness when it's upside down. So for example, this face of Anna David Mitchell, she's in the light. So I've made kind of markers of where people are in the light and then some are completely in shade. So where they're in the shade, I'm going to use glazing to basically lighten the areas that will be hit by more atmospheric light from the sky and warm the shadow areas, and then a few little subtle more suggestions of form. I really want to get a good likeness, so particularly most of the figures, especially where it's a real person who's been good enough to model, I want it to look like them. So this is my setup. So I've got a fresh palette there, cup of coffee, my new brushes. I've just sort of started clean and I'm just going to work my way round. And then where it's a bit strong, I can just wipe it out with a tissue. But I'm going to go over it in a second with, once this is dry, I'll reinforce some of the colours, some of the edges. But it's worked, you can see how it's worked here in terms of creating a sense of the light falling on the skin, the light from the sky. So I'm not using anything just special, just my normal medium. But another thing where this is useful, again, this is a alizarin crimson, lovely transparent thing, is in fabric. So look at that, I can just, and it creates a lovely, warm, transparent glow to the fabric. Maybe even the toes. And those shadows where the light from the flesh is bouncing around. So leaving the modelling to serve itself from the underneath, but it creates that lovely warm glow, which works so well with the opaque highlights. Right, I'm going to do a little bit of composition and changing, just a tiny bit. So this adder I really like, and I like the way it comes out of here, but I don't think it works really. It's too close to the shoes and there's too much gap with here. So I'm going to just lose that for a bit. I've got a little rat here, which it's just kind of like, you know, squalor. So I like the idea of something coming out of the quilt. So I'm going to make the rat, I think, come out of the quilt there. So that will just be a placeholder to remind me there. Put a little bit of light. Okay, so rat's going to come out there. And then instead of the snake here, that will just be quilt. I'm going to use a bit of, I think this is like a zinc white, so like a light white. I'm going to, where the rat was, so there's a pile of washing there. So I'm going to have the adder come out, I think, like this. There, that'll do. So it's still emerging from something, which I think is, and that's the sort of shape they go in, that zigzag. And then if I've got its head like that, I can have a nice shadow underneath there, and it can be addressing itself to her. So I might need to move the rat actually, because now that's too close to the snake. Where should I put the rat? Okay, well, the rat's easy to fit in at the end. Could just leave the rat up here and put it here. Could have two rats. Okay, I'll probably have something there. Anyway, that's better. Right. Okay, so it's time now to start the quilt, and I have basically separated it into a shadow area and light area, and then my palette I've mixed up, aiming that the lightest darks are darker than the darkest lights. So this is my dividing line here. And so if I was to split the quilt into a shadow section and a light section, this is the shadow section. So these will be the darkest colours in the shadow section. These are the colours that I will use for the lightest colours in the shadow. And then here I've got my darkest colours. They're also a bit warmer for the light because it's going to be cooler in the shadow and warmer in the light. And then there are my three lights. So for the light and dark areas of the quilt, I've got a selection of 6 colours. And here is the quilt pattern, which I'm going to be trying to map on. And then it's just a case of using very careful attention to the pattern, not losing track of it. Thanks so much for watching. The next video I think might be the last. So I've got quite a few bits to do. The foreground, I'm going to reinstate the mast and the rigging where I painted over them with the sky. I'm going to do this corner of squalor where I'm going to put things like a rat in and stuff like that, and yeah, just do some general all-round balancing. So come back soon and see you then.